You're welcome to the Gavel. I'm Linda Akibi. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, as well as other non-governmental organizations, namely Budget and Enough is Enough, have filed a lawsuit asking the Federal High Court to restrain the National Assembly Service Commission from paying or releasing the sum of 5.5 billion naira budgeted for purchase of luxury cars for members of the 9th Senate. Now, these organizations insist that spending a sum of 5.5 billion naira to buy luxury cars for senators is unjust and unfair. We'll bring you more details of this matter later on in the program. But first, let's take a look at reactions to the tribunal judgment nullifying the election for the Abia North Senatorial District.
The APC and PDP senatorial candidates for Abia North in the February 2019 elections have been reacting to the judgment of the tribunal nullifying the election. Senator Ojus Okalu from the APC won the election and was sworn in as the senator representing Abia North. But his opponent, Senator Mao Ohuabunwa, approached the tribunal asking it to nullify the election of Senator Kalu, insisting that some votes were excluded during the collation of results, as well as disenfranchisement of many registered voters in his constituency. The tribunal on Tuesday, September 10, nullified the election and ordered a supplementary election in the affected areas within 90 days.
Election is a process, and the declaration is the end, where the Form EC 40G is issued and signed, and you'll be given at the full glare of pressmen and other agents. But nothing like that was done. So as far as we are concerned, or as far as I'm concerned, I have no business or problem with Ojus Okalu. My problem was with INEC, who was the umpire, who was supposed to do the right thing, and the right thing was not done. And we went to court. And I want to say that with that yesterday's judgment, it has rekindled my hope in the judiciary that we still have men and women of honor.
I've already issued a statement that in Abia North we are not losing sleep about the judgment. We can do that election 20 times. Buhari, our president, the senatorial district, my seat, and the governorship candidate seat is intact. We always win it, and it's a fundamental error that they might have to call for supplementary election in some units, not even ward.
I said earlier in the program that the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and organizations, namely Budget and Enough is Enough, have filed a lawsuit asking the Federal High Court to stop the National Assembly Service Commission from paying or releasing the sum of 5.5 billion naira budgeted for purchase of luxury cars for senators, and to restrain the Senate from collecting the money until the downward review of the amount proposed by the Senate. Now, these organizations insist that spending the sum of 5.5 billion naira to buy luxury cars for senators is unfair and unjust. We had an interview with the Deputy Director of SERAP, Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, to learn more about the lawsuit and other issues.
Shortly before the Senate went on recess, there are reports from the media about the plans of the Senate to buy cars for principal members of the committees. And the way it was reported that the cars are meant for the chairman and the vice chairman of the committees. And then we look at it, we have 69 committees, and then we have 109 members. More that translates to every member is getting a car. And that sums up to the over 5 billion naira they're spending on vehicles. And we looked at it. We, as a responsible CSO, doing great work on accountability and transparency, that could not be said to be fair in the interest of Nigerians, given the particular economic climate we have now. And so, Budget, they do a lot of good work in this aspect. So we reached out to them, we formed a collaboration, and Enough is Enough too. And we said, no, this cannot stand. And of course, you will see from the suits, we had over 6,000 Nigerians who joined us. That's 6,721 Nigerians. to say that no, this is not right. And what we have done is to file a suit called an originating summons before the court, asking the court to interpret some portions of the law vis-a-vis the planned actions of the senators, whether it is legal or otherwise. Of course, we believe it's unlawful, and that's why we've gone to the court to submit that to the judiciary.
Why do you believe it's unlawful?
Yeah, now, when you look at the provisions of the law, National Assembly members, senators are public officers. And the law says public officers should not put themselves in situations where their personal interest clashes with their duties to the country. So when you look at the poverty and the economic position in the country, and then you look at over 5 billion naira to purchase vehicles, yeah, it begs the question, is that fiscal efficiency? And you must understand, we are not saying that they are not entitled to official cars, but why so much? And why the choice of 50 million cars, buying a Toyota Jeep? I understand that is what they intend to buy. Yeah, really, we believe it's not in the interest of Nigerians to spend that much on vehicles, which we cannot even economically be called an asset to the state. And then there's a pertinent question, what happened to the ones bought by the 8th National Assembly? And so if National Assembly spends so much, and it's growing, the 8th Senate spent over 2 billion on vehicles too, then you can imagine what it will be like by 2025.
But have you indeed gotten confirmation from the Senate that they are indeed going to spend this amount of money on
the
vehicles?
Newspaper reports, the reports we got stated that the position of the Senate was stated by the officials of the Senate shortly before they went on recess. That was after considering the list of the ministers. Yes. But
have there been plans by your organization to actually even engage with the Senate on this matter?
Not directly. But I am aware that the budget has done some good work in demanding the expenditure of the National Assembly, which they are yet to get up to now. Because we reached out to them when we wanted to do something like this, if they have such information.
Over time, there's been, this advocacy for an open NAS. And we saw in the 8th Assembly, for the first time, we saw the Senate actually release, details of, not in the National Assembly, details of its budget. Were you satisfied by that move by the 8th Assembly?
Not quite. Yes, details, but not enough details. Now, you would understand, let's look at the smallest, and I believe the one most asked for by Nigerians. What does an average senator take home? We don't have that details in black and white. So if you don't know how much a senator takes home, then really, how can we justify the other spendings as details? Yes, it's been open for a bit, it's good, but it's not enough. And that is why government needs to be more open to let the people know what is going on, what has been committed to what, and to what extent it has been spent. And that goes to the issue of the audit reports from all sectors of government, which the Auditor General itself has complained about.
We're still talking about openness. Now, you want it to be more open. Just to give me specific examples, what more would you want to see in the budget in openness as regards budget of the National Assembly? And the openness, is it limited to just the budget of National Assembly or other issues in National Assembly?
No, of course, all issues. The budget is just a part of it. Okay. The way laws are being passed, the considerations for each bill, and to be sure that every individual knows what our senator is doing in the House. And I think that is on the part of Nigerians. Nigerians need to do more in that regard. And so when you talk of budgetary allocations, that is the duty of the National Assembly. That's the duty of the people, to right holders and duty bearers. So people need to take enough interest in what government is doing. That is what they are representing to do in the National Assembly. But you can write letters, and that's what bill he has passed, what bill he has supported. That is available. But the one we are looking now is the budget. How funds are committed to what purpose. And then there's the issue of the constituency projects too. Who gets what, when and how? So those are the things that need to be more detailed. And for instance, if we have details of constituency projects handled by who, which sector, which senator, it will be easy to track. Look at the good work ICPC is doing recently. Who has gotten funds for what, and to what extent he has carried out that project. So that is part of the whole thing of openness.
Okay. Now, so basically, some have said that, limiting, in terms of constituency project, limiting the advocacy to Parliament is not enough, because we know that it is the executive that implements issues of constituency projects. These contracts are handled by ministries and government agencies. Is there any move by your organization to also even track it from the ministries and government, from the government ministries and agencies?
Yeah, we're on the constituency monitoring tracking group with the ICPC, which is a good initiative. Yes, we were part of it during the launch, and yes, we are working in that regard, because the way these things are, when we know the Senate, of course he doesn't get the funds directly, but even we've seen instances where even the members of the executive allocating the contract to the contractor has some kind of influence or control or input from the senator. And that is where those connections need to be drawn. And then you talk about beneficial ownership. It's a long thing about those companies. But were the contracts, did they go through the proper process? Was the amount equivalent to the job done? And then finally, was the job done? Those are the pertinent questions that come out from this consensus project issue.
How would you evaluate, what ICPC has been doing in the last few months? We know that they have come down hard on some senators, accusing them of, taking, materials meant for the constituencies for personal use. So looking at the process so far from ICPC, what do you think about it?
It's a good job. You must understand that the investigation is what brought these things to light. And of course, these things will still end up in court after investigation. So it is court that will finally decide whether there was any illegality performed or not. But ICPC is doing well in even noting those things in the first place. So of course, judiciary will be the final arbiter, but I think it's a good thing.
We have a new assembly, a ninth assembly.
Yes.
Not so new, but
Yeah.
new enough. What would you expect to see from the ninth assembly in terms of, as regards transparency and openness?
Yes. Commitment to true democracy, meaning they should act effectively to work with other arms of government, but not be a rubber stamp. And it's very important when we're talking about transparency that they need to let the people know about their activities and that it is in the interest of Nigerians, which is why I believe that it will be hard on their part to sell it to the public that we are going to spend over 5 billion naira to buy cars for 109 people. Now, let them explain to the people, how did they arrive at that figure? How did they arrive on those cars? Why did they arrive at Toyota cars? Why not innocent vehicles? Why not other made in Nigeria vehicles? Those are the things so that even if you let the people know and they possibly understand, probably there won't be there won't be so much cry. But it's not open in the first place. And I think it's going to be hard to sell it to Nigerians. Why you have to spend so much on cars when there are so many Nigerians who are unemployed, when the state governors find it hard to pay minimum wage? No, I don't think it's. But let them be open, and then possibly the people will understand and then hold them to account.
Do you get a sense of apathy by Nigerians? That many Nigerians are not particularly interested in what their representatives are doing in Parliament. They're not interested in knowing how much each lawmaker takes home and what it does with it. Do you get that sense?
Yes, not enough. Yeah, Nigerians do, and Nigerians are very intelligent people, very smart people, resilient too. There is interest, but I would say not enough. Yes, we need to hold our representatives to account, and because they are there on behalf of the people, making laws for the benefit of the people need to ask them pertinent questions. And the Freedom of Information Act is a very good tool in this regard. Write an FOI. The law says anybody can write, and the law even says it need not be in writing. So you have a right to ask. You have a right to write to your senator, for instance. You've been there for 3 months or 5 months. Yeah, they were inaugurated. They saw to the list of the ministers. They got their welcome package, and they've gone on recess. So if any FOI is written at this time, I wonder what they will say they've done. So, but along the lines, the citizens should ask more questions. Yes, that is part of what we speak in our advocacy engagements to the citizens. Ask questions of government. And I'm sure responsible government will know that citizens asking questions doesn't mean it's not necessarily anti-government. They want to know. We deserve to know. The Constitution is prefaced by we the people. So we need to know how the country is being run on our behalf. I think that's what the social contract theory says. So government should be more open, and people should show more interest, definitely.
You talk about, holding our representatives in Parliament to account. Specifically, how does a citizen go about doing this?
I mentioned one very good tool, the Freedom of Information Act. It's a very good tool. Mm-hmm. You know the name of a senator. You need to find out who is representing you, for those who don't know, at the House of Reps and at the Senate. Find out who he is. This cuts across the political divide. Whether you voted for him or not, it's immaterial. Then you write. You make what is called an FOI request, asking him whatever you feel like asking, as long as it is within his office as a public officer. And the FOI says he is bound to respond. For instance, on this issue, you can write an FOI request to the National Assembly through the clerk. How much has been budgeted? How much has been spent?